Hey everyone, Mr. Sujano here, your source for gaming, tech, emulation, and open source news. Let's get started. Alright, to kick things off, yes, I am camping again. It's an okay day outside. I'm not going to say it's horrible, but it is a little bit hot and humid and sticky and also rainy and, well, gloomy too. But at the same time, I guess that's kind of fitting due to some of the news we've got to talk about, but we do have some good news as well. Alright, we'll kick things off with some pretty bad news and some news that took the internet by surprise yesterday and disappointed a lot of people. And that's the fact that RomHacking Dot Net is shutting down. It's dead. Now, there's a big news post over on RomHacking Dot Net as to why exactly it's shutting down. And the big reasons seem to be mounting copyright issues and also big personality differences. Now, I've done some digging into this one, and it seems that there are multiple sides to the story. I mean, RomHacking Dot Net says one thing, Discord says something a little bit different. And I'm just wondering if it is just generally personality differences and that's the main reason. Now, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really matter who the beef was between and what exactly is going on here, because the main part of the entire thing is that RomHacking.net is no more. Fortunately though, everything from RomHacking.net has been backed up in the Internet Archive, and I'll drop a link to that in the description below as well, and feel free to check it out. And yes, I'll drop a link to the RomHacking.net news post as well, describing this whole issue in the description below. Now, with RomHacking.net going down, I'm certain there's going to be a number of people to try to start up an alternative. And there are some alternatives already out there, for example, romhacks.org. And I'll drop a link to that website in the description below as well. And as soon as I know more about good alternatives, you'll know more. But next up here, we're shifting from bad news to not so bad news. Actually, some very good news. We're quickly talking about PS4 emulation with Shad PS4. And yes, I've got even more news for you about Shad PS4. So according to Shad PS4's Twitter account, it appears that Dark Souls is booting and in-game and looking really good. If you can see the screenshot, I'll drop a link to the tweet in the description below, and well, this is good news for Shad PS4. This emulator just keeps making improvements in leaps and bounds. It's absolutely incredible. And no, they are not changing their name to Chad PS4. Fun fact here, Shad PS4 stands for Subscribe to Mr. Sujano, or Shadow PS4, depending on how you want to interpret that. And that's the whole reasoning behind the name of Shad PS4. Moving on, and we're talking about Intel. Now, Intel has been in the news a whole bunch recently due to their 13th and 14th generation CPU issues. And Intel seems to be acknowledging it in some way, shape, and form. We've talked about it a little bit, and I've got even more news for you. So it appears that in somewhat good faith here, in my opinion, Intel is extending warranties for the 13th and 14th generation CPUs. This doesn't mean they're doing any recalls though, they're just extending warranties. So from my understanding here, if you're already experiencing issues with the 13th or 14th generation CPUs, the microcode patch is not going to fix it. From my understanding as well, the microcode patch is a preventative measure to just lower voltages. It's been said that voltages are not the only issue here with these CPUs, and my gut tells me Intel is not issuing a recall to avoid complete mass hysteria, but rather just trying to treat the ones that are having issues and probably hoping that a lot of people just won't notice the issues or will just accept it and move on. Plus, if you factor in that they're also releasing a brand new chip very soon, I don't think that they'd want this PR disaster. They're probably just trying to brush everything under the rug until they can get their new chips out. And then maybe just recommend everybody upgrade, provided these new chips don't also have the same issue. To be honest with you, I'm not really a fan of this approach by Intel, but at least they are doing something. And I mean, I'm betting they're just scrambling, trying to save face and trying to make something work to avoid complete mass recalls. Now, the rain out here is getting a little bit worse. It's picking up. I'm getting a little bit wet here. The trees are providing decent coverage to continue on my walk. I haven't really seen a whole lot of wildlife yet, maybe some rabbits and also a very interesting bird. I guess I'll show that to you right now. And of course, as I started filming it, it completely flew away. Now, I'm not a bird expert. I do think birds are pretty cool, and I find their chirps and sounds very interesting. So I don't know what kind of bird that is. I'm assuming it's a heron, but if you know, let me know in the comments below. And on a quick side note here, not to get off topic, there is one app that I like to use while I'm in the wild, and this is not a sponsored ad or anything. It's just me nerding out. So there's an app called Merlin. It's on Android. I don't know if it's on iOS. It is free. It's from, I think, Cornell Labs, so Cornell University or whatever. And there is an option on there to actually identify birds. So you press the sound ID, it'll tell you the birds in the area. And it also has calls, so you can call them to you, which is a pretty fun thing to do. And I've learned quite a bit about birds through this thing. At the same time, there's still so much more to learn. And I don't know if I'm antagonizing the birds by playing the calls and then them coming to check me out, or what exactly is going on there. But at the very least, I'll drop a link to Merlin in the description below and check that one out too. But speaking about Apple, next up we're talking about the App Store. And it appears that Apple is loosening up their guidelines on emulation on the App Store here, specifically with PC emulators. So we've talked about this one a little bit in the past, but apparently the rules have been rewritten to allow Windows, Mac, and Linux emulation on the App Store. And possibly here this gets us one step closer to enabling JIT, which would completely unlock a whole lot of potential for emulation on iOS. If you are curious about this one, I'll drop a link to the article in the description below and feel free to check it out, especially if you're interested in reading some technical jargon. Next up, this one's a quick one and just a heads up, but it appears that Mesen is getting Colecovision support. So if you head on over to GitHub, I'll drop a link to it in the description below. One of the recent updates to Mesen allows for Colecovision support. Mesen is a multi-system emulator. It's a very good one, and I do recommend checking it out. And speaking about quick ones, next up we're quickly talking about PS2 emulation with Play. Now Play is a PS2 emulator for Windows, Mac, Linux, Android, iOS, in your browser, and even more. And Play is, I don't want to say it's an up-and-coming PS2 emulator. I mean, it's been around for a while. It doesn't require a BIOS file, and it keeps getting better and better. It's not at the level of PCSX2 yet, or even Aether SX2 or Nether SX2 now. But at the same time, it's still making leaps and bounds and improvements. And they've just released a report on what games are now working with it. I'll drop a link to the Patreon page in the description below and feel free to check it out. I mean, there's a ton of great information in there as to what's currently going on with their testing. Compatibility is improving, and this time around we've got compatibility with Gladius, a whole bunch of Buzz games, Unreal Tournament, and even more. Next up, we're talking about a free game for the Sega Megadrive and Genesis, and this one's very interesting. If I'm not mistaken, and I could be wrong, let me know in the comments below. This could be the first TATE mode game for the system, and this one is called Space Tonbo. If you are curious about this one, I'll drop a link to it in the description below, and like always, feel free to check it out. I think it's 100% free. And speaking about interesting games, last up here we're talking about first-person shooter Selaco. Now this game has just been Steam Deck verified. I'll drop a link to their latest news update in the description below, and do recommend checking it out if you enjoy the game. They outline a whole bunch of stuff that's upcoming in this game, and if you take a look on Steam, it's been very positively reviewed with a whole bunch of reviews. For example, in the next update here, they're getting weapon rebalancing, backpack reloading, and even more. If you play Selaco, let me know your thoughts about it in the comments below. But anyways, that is all I've got for you in this one. Straight to the point, all stuff and no fluff. Thanks for coming out on a morning nature walk with me and talking about the news. We talked about a ton today. Let me know your thoughts about absolutely any of it in the comments below. If you liked this video, leave a like. If you didn't like this video, leave a like. Hit that subscribe button. Check out my other videos. Don't tempt fate. Save your state.